Hey everybody, Ron McIntosh here, and welcome to this video blog. With me today is Jonathan Conneely, Coach JC, fitness guru, life coach, one of the top Christian motivational speakers anywhere in the world. You've had great success, but it hasn't always been that way. There was a time you needed to discover the missing ingredient, how to renew your mind, establish your heart, and transform your personal belief system. Tell all the people that are watching today just a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. I love seeing you. I love this guy. I appreciate you.
Yep.
I really contribute you for saving my life, man. So I'm grateful and thank you. I mean, here's the bottom line. I think the first time I really got to know you, I was at the lowest point in my life.
Yeah.
You know, I was in the fight of my life to be a father,
Right.
in a custody battle. I was over $400,000 in debt. I was depressed, oppressed, contemplating suicide. I'll never forget laying in a 600 square foot apartment, face down, thinking about taking my life, and then putting on clothes and trying to go to a class you were teaching.
Right.
And just what I had to do just to show up, just to get there.
Yeah.
So at the lowest point in my life, I was blessed to cross paths with you. And in one of your classes, you talked about the missing ingredient.
Right.
And I don't remember much about the classes because I would show up, Ron, and I was so down and out. I was living with such guilt and shame and condemnation and fear and anxiety, like many people do live with,
Yeah.
from mistakes and failures. But I remember one thing that stuck out to me. And I remember you mentioned a verse, Romans 12:2.
Right.
And the verse says, "Do not be conformed to the things of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind."
Right.
Not only did you talk about the verse, but then you went on to give some strategic things to do.
Right.
And I didn't really understand them at the time. I was brought up in a Christian household, and my mom kind of told us all these things, but God never really became real to me. I never really experienced Him in my life. And I remember just taking the notes that you would give us, and I would go home and I would do what you said to do. And I remember posting these sticky notes and these note cards and all around my 600 square foot apartment, no furniture, broke, desperate, down and out. And all of a sudden, my situation around me didn't get better, but I started to get better. Right. And I would come to your class the next day, the following day, and I would just grasp the concepts, the missing ingredient, and Romans 12:2, through that class, through the missing ingredient, and through your teaching, I honestly believe saved my life at that moment. And here's why. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not be conformed to the things of this world." I was so conformed to the things of the world, and I wasn't doing bad things. I made some decisions, got a young girl pregnant. We get married. I'm in the custody battle to be a father. I'm going through, I threw away my story I created for myself. Growing up in New Jersey, ending up in Tulsa, Oklahoma to play basketball. What happens when your story's turned upside down?
Yeah.
So I'm down and out, depressed, oppressed. I'm figuring out, how do you really renew your mind? What does that really mean? Do not be conformed to the things of this world. For me, the things of this world were in my own head. It was the guilt, the shame, the unworthiness. I mean, those things were heavy. I was living like I was imprisoned, like I was bound by these things. So those were the things I really needed to break. And renewing my mind was a process. But I remember taking that verse and I said, well, how do you really do this? And as you gave other verses, I said, what if I could only start to do what Ron says to do? And I'm going to start to think, speak, and act differently. I'm no longer going to act like a victim. I'm no longer going to act like I'm depressed. I'm no longer going to speak like I'm depressed, like I'm down and out, like I'm broke. And what if I was started to think like I'm victorious and act like I'm going to win? And I started to fight in renewing my mind. Do not be conformed to things of this world, but be transformed by renewing of your mind. And as I started to think differently, I started to speak differently. I remember you used to say some things about, hey, your words are powerful and you could build faith that way and all those amazing things. But I started to really buy a hold of that and say, what if, Coach JC, Ron isn't the best preacher in your life, but you become the best preacher in your life? What if you start to say, I am more than a conqueror? What if you start to say that I can do all things through Christ? What if you start to say, like Romans 8:28 says, that all things work together for good?
Right.
And all of a sudden, because my thought life started to change through the missing ingredient, because my speech started to change, my actions started to change. And I remember you talking about the subconscious mind and how you could train the subconscious mind. And it really worked because I started to take purposeful, intentional action. And all of a sudden, I became a better version of me. And when I became a better version of me and discovered the missing ingredient, then my situation started to change.
Right.
So I'm forever grateful. I was at the lowest time in my life, and I honestly believe that God put me in your life as a divine, put me in your life and you in my life as a divine appointment so that I could experience the missing ingredient, and it absolutely changed my life. Saved my life and changed my life.
Absolutely. So what happened to you is you went from your head to your heart. The transformation just catapulted you on a journey that you're in today. So if those that are watching today, if you could just tell them one thing, what would you tell them?
I brought up that verse earlier, Romans 8:28. I mean, that's been a staple in my life, that all things work together for good. So if you're watching today and you're going through hell, you're going through adversity, an obstacle, a trial, a tribulation, I was there. I can relate. And you might say, well, Coach JC, man, how do you sit up here now and say all things work together for good? I can only say it because I got a hold of it, and I'm a walk-in testimony. I'm a walk-in miracle that all things do work together for good. And I honestly know that sometimes we hide behind, like I was, the guilt, the shame, the condemnation. All of those things are real. Emotions are real. And I'm here today to tell you that they don't have to control you. If you choose and you allow emotions to control you, then you'll be a roller coaster in life. But if you get a hold of the missing ingredient and you genuinely renew your mind and you get a heart check, I honestly believe that the same God, Ron, that rescued me, $400,000 in debt, in the fight of my life to be a father in a custody battle, face down contemplating suicide, that he's the same God today, yesterday, today, and forever, and that he can radically invade your heart, your mind. But I want to challenge you and encourage you, the same thing I did with Ron here, is you got, I believe, take your faith and couple it with God's word, the missing ingredient, Romans 12:2. But if you take a little purposeful and intentional action right now and know that these biblical principles are biblical principles, you can make them real in your life, I honestly believe that you could be the best version of you, that you can win all day, that you can walk out and maximize your God-given calling and purpose and fulfill your destiny on this earth.
What a testimony. What a transformation. Thank you guys for being with us today. If you need more information, go to our website, ronmcintoshministries.com, where you can find more information about the missing ingredient. In fact, if somebody wants to invite you to come speak someplace, how can they get a hold of you?
CoachJC.com.
So there you go. Again, thanks for being with us today.